Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, November 25th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Dan Rubin in just a moment. Welcome to the week of the game, my friends. 5 days and counting. I can't wait. Buckeyes favored by 20.5. Their win probability is 91% according to the ESPN computers. They call it the football power. Excuse me here. I don't know. Where'd we go? Sorry, live podcasts. I still had our YouTube up, so the YouTube ad was playing on our own podcast here. So sorry about that. But the Football Power Index gives Ohio State a 91% chance of winning this game. For comparison's sake, they only gave them a 73% chance of beating Indiana when Ohio State was favored by 10.5. Buckeyes 14-7 at halftime. Then Buckeyes pull away 38-15. All right, before we bring in Mr. Rubin, I want to let you guys know about Mando. Love that they're returning as a sponsor. They've been a longtime sponsor and they're back. It means you guys are buying Mando products, which is good. I highly recommend it. I love their products. We have a great deal for you guys, so you can check it out yourself. The Mando was developed by a doctor, and it gives you 72-hour odor control. If you've been using the same deodorant for years, like I used to, it might be time to change to something better, something different, and that's what Mando is. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers or to secure some last-minute stocking stuffers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite-smelling whole-body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Don't let BO keep you on the bench. Smell better with Mando. All right. Brass tacks. Man, I've been waiting for this game since basically the end of last year's game. And there's some demons that need to be exercised on Saturday, and they will be. Mr. Rubin, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Always good to be here on a Victory Monday.
Yeah, we'll get your thoughts on Indiana in just a moment. I do want to get look back on that game, but not even really the betting angle. When you saw Ohio State's favored by 20.5, and then even more so the 91% chance they're given of the win probability, what kind of went through your mind on that?
I didn't see the win probability thing. The first line I saw that came out was 23. That was a while. Maybe that was a few days ago before they put 50 on Northwestern. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get your mind around that gap given where we were at this time last year. But I think the spread is indicative of where the programs have gone since then and where they're headed. If it wasn't Michigan, I think everyone would be very comfortable with a spread of that ilk. In a game like this, obviously, with you say 20 points, and Michigan will get to put that up on their, on their chalkboard, etc. But certainly better to be a 20-point favorite than a 20-point underdog.
Yeah, we'll get knee deep into the matchup in just a moment. I'll be doing videos over 24/7 Sports later today because I'll be I want to get that in the hopper. For the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. So, all right, the Indiana game. Obviously, I mean we've seen this story before. Buckeyes start slow, pull away. What we have not seen is a punt return for a touchdown. That was fantastic. Highlight one of the if not the highlight of the season, like definitely one of the top highlights of the season so far. Caleb Downs. That's awesome. I don't know, man. I mean, overall, I was very, very happy. Yeah, I wasn't happy that they started slow, only up 14-7 at halftime. But hey, I mean, you beat a good Indiana team going away like that. I was impressed.
Dave, I've said on this show and on any platform I can, if Ohio State doesn't turn the ball over, they will not lose. And yeah, I basically feel like that. And then we turn it over or something. I mean, I don't really understand the slow starts. You would think we'd be able to script something up. If you guys, we got Buckeye in the Sky coming from Mark Porter later today. On that first drive, on third and whatever, it was 3rd and 7, maybe 3rd and 8, and he threw it to Emeka over the middle. If he had thrown the ball on the right flat to Travion Henderson, he might have scored.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's one mistake. That's one guy he didn't see. So is that a trend? In the beginning of games, I don't know. It's kind of exacerbated by the fact that I really do think this, and I have no inside information on this, but Ohio State statistics, if you go look at them on defense, and if you're negative about Ohio State, you need to go look at how they figure in nationally statistically. You can make a very good argument that they're the best defense, but they don't start great. They give up touchdowns. They're more likely to give up, I think, a touchdown on the first drive than any other drive. So I think I'm not saying this is by design, but I get the real sense that Jim Knowles has a way of playing the first drive to see parts of your script, to let him know what's going on for the rest of the game so that he can make some judgments. Because if you look at their approach, first drive of the last few games, and then the rest of the drives, I really think he's just checking out their protections and seeing which blitzes he wants to use, and then he releases the hounds. The source I communicate during the game with is an NFL guy. We realized, and his complaints, if he would just check in, if we started talking after the first drive, he'd be much better off. But I really do think now that there is a rhyme to that, a reason to that rhyme, or whatever you would say, because it's so different after the first drive. I mean, you've seen this, Dave, with offenses in the NFL. This is pretty common. A team will come out and score a touchdown on their first drive and finish with 10 points because their script worked. The other team adjusts. They have better players and they go to it. So that's what I have to believe is happening in the beginning. They were so dominant defensively that the first drive, if you go back and look at it, it's a complete outlier. So I think they were just checking to see what was going on, getting a little lay of the land, seeing how they react. Maybe they did a couple things that triggered responses that Knowles wanted to see, and then it was kind of release the hounds. But it was great.
Buckeyes they're one of the best teams in the country since the Oregon game of getting pressure on quarterbacks, including sacks itself. I mean, even though for the overall season, they have 35 sacks. So, that sounded like almost like a baseball thing when people say, yeah, since July, he's hitting 350. Don't mention he was hitting 120 before that. Then overall, he's hitting about 260. No, but Knowles, man, it's becoming more and more evident, not that it wasn't already, that Ryan Day said, okay, you're doing whatever you want now after the Oregon game. Because I keep repeating myself, Dan, but it looks like if you pop on Oklahoma State, his final year there when they were one of the top 5 defenses in the country, which is crazy thing about Oklahoma State being one of the top 5 defenses in the country. It looks like that scheme, but with, Sonny Styles and Cody Simon. By the way, way to go, Cody Simon, having his game of his life. Man, they're playing like a silver bullet defense, and now they're playing a one-dimensional Michigan team who is playing its best football. But man, you're talking about a half of an Indiana game and then a game at home against a pretty bad Northwestern team. So they are playing their best football, but they're completely one-dimensional. I think they're in trouble. This is the best defense in the country, in my opinion. They are statistically, Ohio State is. I think even taking just, I bet if you had, let's say you pulled all the coaches that you trust, head coaches you trust in the country, and I bet you anything Ohio State would be the number 1 defense they would take over anybody else.
It's one of the things, Dave, where and I love the fact that people get their information through Bucknuts and through us. It is occasionally, I think, important to kind of pan back. If you listen to believe me, there are 500 YouTube channels doing reviews of the game, none as good as What We Learned Live, I might add. Although some major companies just decide to name their post-game show What We Learned Live, Sports Illustrated. But I digress.
Did they really? Come on. Get your own name. We've been doing this. Hey, well, everybody's copied the Bucknuts Morning 5, so hey, imitation's the highest form of flattery. What are you going to do? Yeah.
Defensively, they're just really much more solid than they were. Obviously, everyone's going to want to talk about Iggy, but statistically, if you pan back, like I said, you can watch any of these other YouTube shows. The national media talks about Jim Knowles like he's a genius. Anyone who follows the Big Ten, these guys, they do not share our fans, some of them, issues with Jim Knowles. They see him more as like in the genius level. Also,
Do you
some
think our fans
statistics.
still have that viewpoint? I think they did after the Oregon game, but I think now they realize, oh, maybe there was a disconnect there between Knowles. Maybe you're right. I just feel like fans now are Ohio State fans. No, maybe they want to see what happens this Saturday first. But it feels like Ohio State fans are like completely on board with Knowles now. I could be wrong.
I think the Ohio State fans have come around, but yes, there are some. What I'm trying to say is I'm not sure they were as far off in the first place, and I'm not, like you said, I'm not sure how much Knowles even had to do with that. So that's a little bit challenging. But one thing that really jumped out to me a few weeks ago, I looked at, they're also by far giving up the fewest pass pressures of anybody else in the country. So you're talking about the defensive line coming around sack-wise. The last time I looked, and this was a couple weeks ago, it was like 65 was second, and we were like in the 50s. So there are things that we see with the standards we have that maybe need to be filtered into the global view so that things are a little bit better than we thought. And it's kind of manifested itself that way. First time in 14 years, a team has played 3 top 5 matchups in one season. Whether you think those teams are really top 5 or not, they did it. And they have 2 wins and a loss by 1 point on the road at night. And I even hear people bringing up controversial offensive pass interference penalties. So they're in good shape, man. Let's just, you know what I mean? They are in good shape. They have withstood a lot of injuries. But if you look, the other teams are, I'm not saying they have the same specific injuries we have, but attrition is starting to kick in across the board. And we've talked about depth. We've talked about, rosters. This is when you're going to start to see it. These last few weeks of the season, I've said this before, the fact that we had Carson Hinsman on the bench. Now, the decision-making that got him on the bench, we could have a separate discussion on. But the fact that your roster has a guy on the bench that good is depth. So what great depth also does, you have a bigger margin for error. You can make a mistake. The backup you put in was better than the other team, and then you can still. So they're in good shape when it comes to that. Obviously, if they were to suffer another key injury on the offensive line, it would be terrible. But you know what? The only guarantee you have now of all these football teams is these rosters will not look like this for 3 weeks into the playoffs. Football is a game of attrition, and their depth is really impressive, as well as the quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, I thought the new look offensive line, second time they've had to do some shuffling up there. I thought they played well against a disruptive Indiana front. Now, I've been saying all year this is not a good Michigan team, and it's not. But where are they good? Defensive line. I mean, they've got 2 studs at D tackle. And the Bengals took Chris Jenkins in the second round, which actually doesn't seem like it was a bad pick. And Chris Jenkins had a good year last year for Michigan. He was their 3rd best defensive tackle, in my opinion, behind Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. So Graham and Grant are back. They also have Stewart on the edge, who I think is a really good player. I mean, they've got some dudes up front. Now, Ohio State, we'll see. We'll see that. You got to be thinking if you're Michigan, that's your chance, because, Ohio State's offensive line played well against Indiana. It also played well. I mean, this is before they lost McLaughlin, but even without Josh Simmons, they played very well against a good Penn State defense up front, pushed them around, in fact. I'm not concerned about it. I think Ohio State is going to win this game by around 3 touchdowns. But if I was to point to one advantage Michigan could have, that could be it, Dan. I don't know if it will be an advantage. It's just,
Yesterday notwithstanding, you guys know I follow a football team that's an NFL team whose season is over, and they've already shifted the guys I covered to covering the draft. And the guy that I follow who covers the draft, his name is Brian Broaddus, is the best, in my opinion, draft guy. He's already reviewed 30. He's already gone in the film on 30 guys. Ohio State drafted Ohio State. Good Lord. Let the lightning strike me. Dallas drafted Mozzie Smith. He's been awful. So that to the point where if you mention a Michigan defensive lineman to a Cowboys fan, they will likely strike you. It's Taco Charlton over TJ Watt. That one made me hurt right there to say that out loud. That's who they chose him over. Literally came down to 2 guys. Good call. How about we draft the guy that didn't get an offer from his hometown team? No one was screaming that at the TV when it happened. But Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, both rate much higher than Mozzie Smith. They've changed their approach. They are much more attacking up front. Mason Graham is going to be the first defensive tackle picked. He's going to be a top 8 pick. It's hard to be a top 8 pick as a defensive tackle. That means you can also get to the quarterback. That's what that means.
Former heavyweight wrestling champion. There you go. Another wrestler who's just wrestling.
I hate that.
Coaches out there, if your guys don't play basketball, if your football coaches, if your guys don't play basketball in the winter, have them wrestle. Even if they get their ass kicked, it'll help them. Go ahead. Sorry. This is my
Floyd
PSA.
Wright.
Yeah.
Literally, no one will get this. Floyd Wright was the best heavyweight wrestler I'd ever covered in high school at Hayfield High School. They brought him out to play nose guard as a senior, and every opponent was glad he didn't do it his freshman, sophomore, and junior year. He was a werewolf destroyer. It is a great thing to be good at. See Fickle, Luke for good wrestlers. So that's going to be a challenge. This is the best defensive line they've faced, bar none. However, Will Johnson has checked out. He's apparently hurt. He's not playing. I think it's already been announced that he's not playing this weekend, has it not?
I was looking that up. There's been a lot of smoke on message boards. I was looking at it right before, I took Signetti's advice. I Googled it, and I couldn't come up with anything.
Okay.
It just everything I came up with. I didn't do a deep dive on it, but everything I came up with just said he's out officially for the Northwestern games. Like, yeah, we knew that from 2 days ago. But there's a lot of smoke that he is, and you got to wonder: is he really going to just come back for this game? When it sounds like he probably is getting ready for the draft, maybe he will. Well, Mason Graham
come back.
No, I don't think he. Well, I don't want.
My thing is this: if you're Will Johnson.
Michigan can't use that as an excuse if they don't have Will Johnson, because Ohio State can be like, okay, he's obviously a very good corner, but like we're without 40% of our starting offensive line due to injury. So
I'm just saying from Will Johnson's perspective, if you're preparing for the draft, is this the receiver crew you want to come back for your first game against and get embarrassed by a freshman in front of everybody? I don't think so.
NFL scouts starting to think, well, maybe he's not that good.
Right.
No, I mean,
and by the way,
he is really, really good.
My scout brought us not completely sold. So
really, because
his favorite
one. Yeah,
his favorite corner is the kid who got injured at East Carolina. So
interesting. Every mock draft I see has Will Johnson as the first corner off the board. But hey, it's not even 2025 yet. So yeah,
let's see.
We shall see. We also need to make everybody aware of our friends down in Kentucky, Cornbread Hemp. Apparently, you guys are liking that because they are a returning sponsor of the show, Cornbread Hemp, and we can get you guys a great deal with Cornbread Hemp. Cornbread Hemp invented the first USDA organic THC edible, and it's legal for anyone 21 and above in the United States. The gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose, perfect for taking off the edge without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. Again, they've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. And now that Bill Kurlick's turned 21, it's even legal for him. As a special offer for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. Patrick heard that ad last week. He was like, wait a minute. He's like, I need to get that for my show, and the words were right out of my mouth. But great stuff at Cornbread Hemp. And you guys apparently know that already because you guys are buying the product. We keep hearing, there's a lot of people from Bucknuts buying Cornbread Hemp. It's like, good. It means you guys are listening to the show and you're supporting our sponsors, which helps everybody in the universe, in my opinion.
And you got your Zen going. That's good.
Exactly. Yes, simpatico. All right. So, geez.
Where are we David Sanders?
That's exactly where I want to go. I want to go David Sanders because we've had a lot of people. I already have this starred. Ryan, we're going to give you the honor, even though there's been like 50 people in the chat that this is the one I starred. That's the first one I saw because I knew a lot of people were going to be asking about David Sanders. Boy, that was good news. When the dean is surprised, like, oh, wow, David Sanders is on campus. But man, I mean, I know it's not as simple as he wouldn't have come here if he wasn't going to flip. I know it's not that simple, but man, I mean,
is it?
I mean, maybe it is, right? I mean, I do feel like the Buckeyes are going to get him now. Is that where you're at? We don't do
Yes.
the crystal ball thing, but if we okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yes, you said yes to my question.
I did say yes. It's not like 100% or anything like that, but let's just say this. It wasn't a clandestine visit after we knew he was here. If you look at the pictures from the sideline, he is wearing an Ohio State cap. He is hanging with Mo Claret. He's getting the business there. And it was an extended visit. He might still be there for last time I checked. I don't want to be the one on to get aggregated here and say that he's definitely coming. But at this point, it's an absolute possibility. Let's just say that. It's not a thing where, I'll put it to you this way. And I can't really even blame the kids who are doing this. There are vibes out there that guys get paid for visits. And we always used to have a running joke here where guys from Ohio, we'd say, hey, how about you take that USC visit or a Florida visit, get some sun? You know what I mean? I don't think this was a gratuitous visit for Mr. Sanders. It was a very, very close finish.
Checking out the beautiful weather here in Columbus in late November. I recommend it highly.
Now, it has agreed more than ever, but it's still gone gray on us.
True.
Hence our T-shirts. But I think it's a very, very good chance that this materializes in a positive fashion. I mean, I can't come out and say guaranteed because especially in this era, there's going to have to be some, what do they call that? Cross T's and dotted I's before this takes place. And Ryan Day will not be at a podium talking to you, so we won't be able to judge the yay or nay by his facial expressions and body posture. But I just feel like this is a much, I hate to say this out loud, but if you were David Sanders, what would you do, man? Come on. I know Tennessee's a good program, but Ohio State is cresting. You know, there's no sign of this peeling off, people. This is not, we are not going back to the dark ages like those up north. Okay. There is no rebuild. Do you know what I'm saying? This is not Tennessee, bro. I'm sorry. And that's a good program. If you go to Tennessee and you're a stud, you're going to the NFL. I get it, but it's not Ohio State, bro. Let's just be honest. So I don't know if that is weighed into it. This is a guy who is a high academic thing. You see medical school and stuff like that. I don't really buy the medical school sales pitch because guess what? You don't have to go to medical school with your undergrad. That doesn't make any sense. People who say that maybe don't have any doctors in their family. That's not a package deal. In fact, it's kind of, most people don't prefer to do that.
That's a fallback plan if the NFL doesn't work out. It's beautiful.
He's gonna be,
when your fallback plan is to be like a doctor.
John Frank.
John Frank, actually, John Frank, the best tight end in Ohio State history. Yeah, I'm aware of Ricky Dudley. I'm aware John Frank is the best. Look him up. And
physician, though.
He walked the walk. He played. He was a really good tight end for the 49ers, retired early and became a doctor. Robert Smith, there was always the Robert Smith is going to be a doctor stuff, and he quit the team for a year, never became a doctor. There was the Craig Krenzel, molecular genetics. I don't know if he actually graduated in molecular genetics or not. Anyway, it makes for it. Well, I tell you what, Aaron Kraft is a doctor.
He is.
Aaron Kraft is a doctor. There was a lot of talk about that too, but yeah, David Sanders, if things go according to plan, maybe all doctors working for him.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like, yeah. I was fortunate to be raised. I was very fortunate to be raised in a doctor's household, but my dad once told me this: if these things don't go to work, guess how much money I get? Nada. Once you've been paid in the NFL, I'm not sure the financial incentive for David Sanders to go and study a ton will be there, but very optimistic about Mr. Sanders. And by the way, guess who's going to end up getting, and we need to sit back and give someone some credit here who has not gotten any credit and in fact probably is checking into hotels under an assumed name, and that is Justin Fry. You can't have this many injuries on the offensive line, guys moving around without the offensive line coach doing a good job.
Good job.
Here's another thing people don't talk about that's going to really work in our favor more than you can even possibly imagine. When they go into the transfer portal this coming year, they're going to be able to say, we took a guy out of San Diego State playing right tackle, okay, who was nobody had heard of. And we're nerds. None of us had heard of him, not even the dean. He is projected to be a first-round draft pick with an injury. So where would you go? You going to go block for the two best running backs in the country and great receivers and be in an offensive line where everyone goes to the pros and they can take a transfer? So Justin Fry, now you got to lock up my guy Sanders here. And I don't think at this point, put it this way, David Sanders is a full staff recruitment. It's not just like they're like, hey, he shows up on campus. They're like, Justin, do your work. And if you don't get him, it's on you. It's a full body massage, as it were, from the entire group. But we do need to I need to back off Fry because maybe it's not the traditional way of getting Paris Johnson and all the results are results. The offensive line has gone through a lot this year and has come through at the most important times, and he deserves credit for that.
If it works out where Ohio State achieves its goals, despite having down 40% of its starting offensive line, including what many consider the two best, all respect to Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, and Josh Simmons. A lot of people thought they were the two best offensive linemen on the team. If they're able to achieve their goals on the field and he flips David Sanders, I will have never seen a coach go from approval rating of whatever you want to say, X to Y, quite like Justin Fry. It would be a massive jump. Speaking of approval ratings, Buckeye fans are in love with Will Howard. I had to start locking threads, not for the normal reason we lock threads, because there was all of these I love Will Howard threads. You can merge all of the I love Will Howard, grown men saying things like, I'm in love with Will Howard, love everything about him. Obviously, it's his game, first and foremost, the way he handles himself at press conferences. And then you see the way he handles himself at press conferences. Like, okay, so he's kind of a goody two-shoes type of guy. Mm-mm. Oh, boy, when the lights come on, he's got that dog in him. He's out there. Now, Mika is saying he's just stealing her material, but he's out there saying, Google that shit. He's saying, he's putting the cigarette out and stomping it out. I mean, I'm with our guys and gals. I'm in love with Will Howard, Dan. I'm not afraid to say it.
I was talking to my NFL scout during the game about Will Howard, and this is the truth. He is a couple impactful and well-known gaffes, 2 or 3, from being in the Heisman discussion.
Right.
Had they won the game at Oregon, I realize if you had wheels, you'd be a trolley car. And I have a point on that too, about the Indiana game and how people have covered that.
That's the family friendly version of the.
I know, but
Dad, believe you'd be
my grandmother's. My grandmother used to say to us, we say it should be, if you had wheels, you'd be a trolley car, which then started a whole discussion about cars, and there's no trolley cars anymore. But the point is this: that theory's been around for a while. If, ands, and buts, and nuts, and your aunt and your uncle. I think the love affair, though, is the unabashed leadership, and he is as good in front of the mic as a quarterback as you are going to find.
Yes.
There are some guys that when they run their mouth like that, they seem cocky and they seem like they're separating themselves from the team. He has a way of doing it where it's lifting the team up with him. He doesn't feel cocky. Dave, and I can tell you this, and this is just behind the scenes stuff. I have seen other quarterbacks interact with their teammates at Ohio State. It is who didn't maybe play as well here. That's not Will Howard. Will Howard is one of the guys. He's just one of the dudes. And he's got a natural leadership quality to him. There's another thing. You're not going to find many videos, if you're scouting quarterbacks, who have runs on tape like he does and throws on tape like he does. Some of his runs at Kansas City, if you go back and look, those long runs and such, this is going to sound silly. I really think he's playing himself into much better NFL contention, draft-wise. He made a throw down the right seam to Emeka in the game the other day that was an absolute NFL dime from the pocket, 3rd and 14 conversion. Yep. That is what they're looking for. That's the throw that they fear you cannot make.
And the one that G got the previous week down the seam was also an NFL throw.
So yeah, I think he can do it. Now, I can't explain the 1 or 2 things a game that seemingly something else inhabits his body. I don't think I've ever followed or rooted for or covered a quarterback who is as good as Will Howard that is prone to these weird mental lapses that don't last, by the way. A lot of guys do that and they go right into the tank. He could do that. Like I said, he missed Trey on the 3rd down, came back, was great. So I don't know. But I'm very optimistic with Will Howard. And also, I really don't think they've released the quarterback run yet.
Wow. I was just about to bring that up. That's crazy. I expect that to be a huge part of the game plan this week because we've seen that sometimes in big games they've brought it out like a little bit more. I think absolutely, Dan. I think we're going to see a lot of called Q runs this week. Yes.
You're going to see hopefully the kitchen sink because after this, whatever Chip has in his bag, I want to see him doing this. I want him like looking in the bag, shaking it, feeling up there to make sure he didn't leave any candy in the bag, shake it out. And whatever you can do, whatever number they can get to, put it this way. Travion Henderson will not be sliding at the 2. He'll be running through the end zone into the crowd to celebrate.
That whole situation was funny, man. Because Trey didn't need to. He's seen too many guys do that when they're supposed to or don't do it when they're supposed to. He didn't need to do that. And then you're thinking, the Buckeyes had a chance to score a touchdown. Now they're just going to take it knee and Will sneaks it in for a touchdown. Some people were pissed off about that. I give Cignetti credit. He didn't whine about that at all. He didn't whine about that at all.
Huh? You can't run your mouth like Cignetti and then cry poor on that.
They even wrote like a national story. Who wrote? Somebody wrote like some like Crimea River national story about. I think it was Sporting News. Somebody like that. And I actually have a friend that works at Sporting News. It wasn't him. It wasn't my guy Bill Bender, who does a great job. It was somebody else, I think. And it might not have even been Sporting News, but somebody wrote a national story just saying, "Oh, what a classless move by Ohio State. Indiana clearly had given up." I'm like, dude, they had clearly given up to the point when they scored a meaningless touchdown. Indiana's going for 2 and then doing an onside kick. That's giving up in your opinion? Like, get that freak out of here.
You could blame that on college football. When you set up a system where margin of victory is important, what are you going to do? It's not their job to deal with that. I got no problem with that at all. I don't get into any of that chatter at the end of the game crap. That's playground crap. No one cares about that. Just win. 10 minutes later, no one even is thinking about that. If that's Indiana's deal, if they're going to be complaining about that, maybe they weren't ready for prime time.
They were not ready for prime time. I do feel like they're a lock. Of course, everything that happened in the SEC makes that even not even a hot take. I feel like Indiana just couldn't afford to get beat by, I said, like 30 or more. And even though they got beat by 23, it being a 14-7 game at halftime, I guarantee the committee will mention that tomorrow night during the rankings when they move Indiana from 5th to whatever they move them to. I bet like around 9th or 10th. And then if Indiana beats Purdue, they're not going to drop. They're probably not going to move up. To me, Indiana, if they beat Purdue, is a lock. And they can thank teams like Ole Miss for completely eliminating themselves. But because the committee, even knowing Indiana's schedule, had them 5th. They go on the road to number 2. 14-7 game at halftime. Yeah, they're going to drop, but they're not going to drop out of the top 11. They're a lock to make the CFP. They'll have to go on the road, though.
One thing that's sure, Dave, there's no juggernaut out there.
Well, there might be one. There might be one, right?
Possibly. And they're very handsome and well mannered.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was hoping that Georgia would lose. That's not the team you want to see on the big stage, just because, like I said, Ohio State has the best roster, arguably. If you go up against the team, I think this is going to be becoming more and more apparent every week. We are about to enter the uncharted waters part of the discussion. No one knows what's going to happen in the playoff. That's what I find funny about this is the degree of certainty with which people talk about the playoff when we've never even seen it. This is an uncharted water. You don't know who's going to. I'm telling you, there's going to be a time when the 12 seed wins the title, and the quarterback is going to go and be on every commercial ever made. And it's going to be, you're going to have 4 weeks to get to know these people. Remember you didn't know Steph Curry before the NCAA tournament in Davidson. 3 weekends in, you're ready to put him in a coffee commercial. We are in uncharted waters. If Will Howard plays great in the playoffs and leads them to a title, you don't think he's going to move up in the draft? You don't think people are going to start using? You don't think? Look, NBA teams, the wives of owners will watch the tournament and affect the draft. They'll be like, oh, who's that guy? Everybody's going to be watching, okay, for recruiting, for everything else. This is going to be high profile stuff. And they're in really good shape for that. So a lot of people have a lot to play with here. A lot of people have a lot of money they can make. A lot of people have money they can lose. Like the certain corner on our team who was being mentioned as a high draft pick early in the year. And Dave, I think we need to address this. I'm almost to the point where I'm ready to pull Iggy. I'm almost to the point where
I don't understand what he's doing. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. And you have Jermaine Matthews just sitting right there, like, put me in, coach. I can be cornerback. Yeah, I'm with you, man. And I like IG. I want to like IGB. He just is too handsy.
I can't believe that no one has said anything to him. And
I'm sure they have.
And he still does it.
Right.
If I was on the sideline and he did that, I'd be like, dude, what the? Stop grabbing the guy and then stop celebrating. I've told you this, Dave. I really think the United States needs to put a law in that if you are celebrating while the yellow flag is in the air, you should have to do a weekend in incarceration or something. Some kind of work release program, maybe. That is my least favorite thing in sports at this point. And it happens all the time. You can't be celebrating that much after you've gotten 2 penalties anyway. You've already done enough. You should stop celebrating for the whole game. I don't understand it. He never lets go of the dude to the point where my one son was like, Dad, can you explain to me the 5-yard rule and stuff like that? I'm like, no, I can't. He just needs to take his hands off the guy.
Especially this
I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anyone like this.
No, I haven't. And he is. Somebody just mentioned he's good in run support. He's tough. He's athletic. He's long. Like he's
a corner
to be a very good corner, including at the next level. He just cannot help himself. He just grabs, and they can't coach it out of him. I don't know. You're right. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've seen guys, because he pretty much has everything else down pat, just that minor thing of racking up penalties more than any corner in the country. Just that minor little detail right there.
He's true.
Yeah, man. Especially this week, man, you cannot give Michigan free first downs because this is a very limited offense. Their only chance is to have, first of all, the turnover battle, as you mentioned. If Ohio State wins the turnover battle, good night. Or if they even have a stalemate, good night. Michigan's chances are win the turnover battle, have like a fluky special teams play, and then control the clock, limit the game, get first downs, get cheap first downs, like on a 3rd down and 8, which for Michigan's almost like 3rd and 20 the way they throw the ball. Do not hold their receivers. Make them earn that, and I can't wait to see Caleb Downs just make Colston Loveland have a bad day because that's pretty much their offense, man. Well, no, that's not true. That's pretty much their passing offense. I like Mullings, their running back. Mullings is a tough, SOB. He's a tough, good running back. I mean, he surpassed Donovan Edwards a long time ago.
Yeah, this is their Super Bowl for sure. So you're going to get their best punch. I like the comment about Tom Cruise and all the right moves. Stefan Djordjevic definitely grabbed against Walnut Hills in that big game in the rain. Maybe we need to send Iggy back on the bus with the cheerleaders like they did with Stefan. Craig T. Nilsson made him do that. Did not go over well. I can't explain that. That's the one part of the team I'm absolutely incredulous about. I can't it happened at every game. I'm like, no, listen.
Right.
I know Bucknutters are like this. Tell me you didn't do this. The second the ball goes down the side, you don't even know who's covering. You're like looking at the scroll. Here comes the yellow flag.
It's flag.
Like, who was covering? Oh, you know who was covering. It's the first play again. They went downfield. It does. I don't know how to explain it. I actually would be interested to hear someone try and explain it because I want to be like, 1 week, I get it. 2 weeks, I get it. What week is it? They played like 10 or 11 games and he holds all the time. I'll ask Bucknutters this. Remember the play over the middle towards the end of the game where it was like 3rd and 2 and he broke it up and he did the thing? How many people were like, yeah. Oh, thank God it's not a flag. You can release. You can exhale. So I don't know how to explain that one. That's nuts.
If you came down and saw the second one, if you saw just the instant replay, the slow-mo, you'd be like, oh, they're showing the one from earlier in the game, right? Like, no, he did it again. I do want to make one. I would give someone one. I want to give some credit out here to an individual, and I don't know how this happened, but I noticed early in the game against Indiana, it was either Hamilton or Tyleek got off the ball so fast on one play, it almost looked like it was a offsides penalty, and it wasn't. So they had Indiana's countdown. I'm sure of it. One of the biggest plays of the game was when Tyleek forced them to get the false start penalty. It was 3rd and 1. So they were going to run it. It went to 3rd and 6. We got a sack and they punted. So that is a veteran move to know when to pop the guy or not. Tyleek, finishing up his college career before he heads for the league. That 3rd and 6 was a big deal. In fact, our boy Signetti in his post-game interview said that was really when he thought the game changed right there. So good credit to whoever on film or whichever player or coach picked up their count because they had it. They were on it. And that's a big deal. Once you have their countdown and you're already blitzing, they got even more dominant. So that was fun to watch. Yeah, I don't get the Jeremiah getting flagged all the time. This is my last point, Dave. People making points about Indiana and saying, well, it would have been closer if they didn't get the punt return or drop the snap. Well, those guys are on Indiana. You don't get to pull those out. That's if you had wheels, you'd be a trolley car. It's funny that we get all this crap for paying for players and paying all this money, and then Caleb Downs, one of the guys they went and got, returns it for a touchdown. People are like, no, forget that part. If that didn't happen, so what is it? Do we get crap for paying for them, or we don't get credit for them playing for us? People just go on this quest to pull credit from Ohio State. It's bizarre. And by the way,
I've never understood that when maybe the guy snapped it over the guy's head because he was nervous because he was going up against Ohio State and the crowd got on him.
This guy, that was just went through his hand. It wasn't even like the Northwest. This time it just went right through his hands, hit him in the helmet, the punter. I tell you what, though, I mean, last time I checked, Dan, in both cases, the Buckeye offense was getting the ball. Just turns out they did get the ball. I mean, at the, very
when people also
line. And then they got the punt return touchdown by Caleb Downs. The thing is, like, who's to say Will Howard doesn't lead him down on a touchdown drive anyway? But to your point, yeah, I mean, you can't just take that away. It wasn't like that was like a lucky punt return. That was a hell of a great punt return. Well, the first guy missed. Then the second guy is the one we're all going to remember. But that making that first guy miss, well, you can't do anything if you don't make the first guy miss. Then that spin move is Braxton Miller-esque, but a punt return, making the guy miss, and then he outraces a guy down the sideline and cuts back. I mean, I'm not saying it was Teddy Ginn. Teddy Ginn's the best to do that, but it was the best punt return I've seen since a Teddy Ginn punt return. It wasn't like the Red Sea parted and Caleb just – that was a hell of a punt return.
People also then say, well, Ohio State only had 315 yards of offense. Well, add the 79 touchdown. Right. If they had the ball there, and they'd have been fine. That's just such a – you're searching for an argument. At this point in time, there's no way to – if you take this season, like I said, it's been 14 years since a team has had 3 top 5 matchups in one season. Oregon didn't play Penn State or Indiana. Penn State doesn't play Oregon or Indiana. In fact, there's no half stepping here. There's no backing in. They've played as tough a schedule as anybody, and they've come through, with flying colors. So I get people trying to pump up the SEC now because they've kind of cannibalized each other. But that's not your father's SEC, man. And I can tell you this, my draft guy, the 2 guys I was most afraid of, the guys from Georgia, he does not see them as top 20 guys. He's more like 15 to 18, which is good because the werewolves are what I'm feared of. They do love Abdul Carter, by the way.
Yeah.
So I think they're in good shape, man. I think it's really, really they deserve a lot of credit. Yes, this is the standard. Yes, I get how much they paid. By the way, so did everybody else, which I don't get. Boy, had Dave not come out and said that quote about the exact number,
It was Bjork, well, I believe, not Day. Day came out a couple years ago and said it was to business leaders, but there was a reporter there that said we need 13 million just to keep our
That's
roster.
what I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Bjork throwing the 20
No.
million.
Once Day said 13 million out loud,
yeah,
it became now we're the highest paying team. Well, just because you don't say you're paying 18 million doesn't mean that had he not said that out loud, that just became he was like the first one to give out a number, and then they see all the guys coming in. You know what I'm saying? They've started to address the fact that most of the money went to returning players. Michigan took 7 transfers. We took 5. So
I bring that up all the time. People say Ohio State bought this team. Did they? I mean, they re-recruited their guys. Yes. What shirt are you wearing, Dan? Yes, having the foundation, doing a great job helps. That's called being good at your job. You can't be asleep at the wheel with NIL in the current landscape of college football. So people that are doing that, that's just, first of all, I don't even care. Like I just mostly ignore it because it doesn't make me mad because it's just people hating on Ohio State, trying to find reasons to hate on Ohio State. And yeah, it's not like, even if they did go out there and buy 20 players and bring them in,
it's legal.
Bringing in 5, I still wouldn't have a problem with it. My point is, yeah, people conveniently leave out what you just did not leave out, of course, that, oh, by the way, they only brought 5 transfers in. You know, if that's buying a team, then okay, then everybody's buying a team.
You know what's going to happen, Dave? After the season, when people have a little extra time, I think you're going to get a report on what everyone actually spent and on who, and it's going to look like money well spent for Ohio State. What do you think Texas A&M paid out?
Maybe I know we need Ross to announce that too. No, okay, all right, we better.
I'm serious.
I'm serious. Yeah, we went a little longer. Hey, it's beat Michigan week. It's that team up north week, whatever you want to call it. The game week. I can't wait. 5 days and counting. Hey, keep it locked to Bucknuts all week. Maybe we'll have David Sanders news. We're going to be talking about Ohio State, Michigan all week. Tomorrow, programming note, okay, everything media-wise is tomorrow. Nothing on Wednesday, obviously nothing on Thursday with it being Thanksgiving. So everything's tomorrow. What does that mean? That means we're getting Ryan Day, we're getting Will Howard, and then the 4 captains. So really the 5 captains, because Will's basically a captain. The only reason he's not is because he's a transfer. So we're getting Will and the 4 captains, and we're getting Coach Day. Keep it locked to Bucknuts for that. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to all of you. Huge. Look at this number here, Dan. It's OSU UM week when you.
I know what time it is,
and that's just a live audience, man. Appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.